to morally identify with those who use power and force and violence over us and sell off our children and the unborn to national debts and wage war in our name and expose us to the inevitable retaliations thereof. To bond with your abuser is the Stockholm Syndrome, and that's the true name for nationalism.
Now, in the mainstream media, practically every evening, we're seeing horrific images from Syria. There's no doubt that there's a very brutal, violent conflict going on there, which can't be described any other way than a civil war. There's a lot of pressure from Western nations, the U.S., France, Germany, the UK, to intervene there in some way. Again, how they would like to intervene hasn't really been laid out specifically, which I'm sure is probably by design. But I look at this and I say, okay, there's no doubt that in Syria we had a terrible situation, but we had a very similar situation about a year ago in Bahrain, where they were being invaded by their neighbor Saudi Arabia, and a lot of people were cut down in the streets, and there was just an awful situation going on there. But yeah, we didn't hear anything about it from the mainstream media.
Existence most people was that they knew the day of their own death, and they could not change it, right? And so this was, everybody thinks that, oh, would I like to know the day of my own death? Sure, look, it's going to come. Would I actually want to know when it is? And most people would probably say, well, no, I don't want to know when it is, because I want to live with misery and maybe think I'll live longer than that, and so on. And of course, if you knew the day of it, you'd probably change your behavior, and so I get to live to be 100, I'm going to smoke and drink like crazy. And so the question is, why do people not see the ridiculously limited nature of the pseudo-choices they're given? Well, you can't change the political system, so why would you want to understand its horrors? Wouldn't that be like knowing the day of your own death? It would not add anything to your life. It would really take things away. I mean, people like you and I, pop out of the matrix sometimes voluntarily. Sometimes I feel like, the fist of humanity squeezed me out like a soap in a shower, and I just flew through the air. And but the vast majority of people, they avoid knowing the truth about politics because they can't change it. And why would you want to awaken to the horrors of the tax farm that you're currently enslaved in? I mean, why? Why would you want to? Why don't you stay in the matrix of patriotism and nationalism and wave the flags and support our troops and the noble cats in blue who, keep the thin blue line who keep the red tide of violence away from your house, and the noble public school teachers who are just there to help the kids. I mean, why would you want to step out of that Soviet propaganda post into the real world, which politically resembles a lot more like Munch's Scream painting than anything else? Why would you want to expose yourself to knowing a horror which you could not conceivably change? I think that's one of the reasons that stays the way it does.
Well, your Crow reference is actually amazingly relevant, because the Cyclops in that movie was actually played by fellow Irishman Liam Neeson. And my final question...
Was it really? No, really?
I believe so, yeah. That's the case.
He really expanded his repertoire, his potential roles when he did grow that second eye. So, kudos on him for making that aesthetic choice, isn't it?
Absolutely. And my final question is on Ireland. As I mentioned, we're broadcasting from Ireland this week, and the Irish people are now being asked by their government to fork over what they're calling a household charge of €100 per household. And out of the potential 1.6 million households that are eligible for this charge, a little over 200,000 households have registered to pay, and there's threats of mass civil disobedience on this front. And the government has actually come out and had to admit that this is actually a property tax on top of the existing property tax, and that not only is it going to be here forever, but it's only going to start out at 100 and then gradually increase. Next year it's going to be about €200, and then on and on and on. So austerity measures are something that we're hearing about again and again all over Europe, and people are very, very familiar. Again, it's the person at the bottom of the totem pole is getting taxed for the mistakes and the recklessness of the too big to fails up the chain. It's the transfer of private debts to the public balance sheet. Now, is this something that we're going to start seeing more and more stateside? Are people going to start feeling the impact, particularly as the economy begins to get worse, as inflation starts to become more and more obvious? outside of just a pump. Should Americans start to prepare for austerity measures?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's always hard to know what the right word is. It's just bad. But of course, yeah, the government's not asking. The government never asks you to do a damn thing. The government only tells you to. But I would invite people to embark with me on a journey to an alternate dimension called the thought experiment. If you could snap your fingers and have all the spare change that's fallen down behind people's couches suddenly show up in your bank account, I mean, you'd be a billionaire. And would people miss the couple of quarters and nickels, dimes and pennies and shillings and whatever that were down? I guess depending how old the nickels is. Would they miss that? Not really, no. I mean, tiny minor inconvenience for people might even help them. But you'd be a billionaire. And if people, would you snap your fingers and have all the spare change? And most people, I think, would say, well, yeah, that would be pretty damn tempting. Yeah, technically it's theft, but man, I get to make $1 billion, which is great for me. I'll give some charity, I'll do all kinds of good with it, don't worry. And other people will barely even miss the spare change that's vanished. Well, that's the life of a banker. If you have the government on your side, and the government is offering you billions of dollars of free money with no legal repercussions, would you take it? Of course you would. Because you've worked your whole life to become a head banker. And if you don't take it, you'll get fired. Because if there's free money to be had, and you're not taking it, that's business 101. Pick up free money if it's legal. And so if the government is offering you this, then you're going to take it. Because if you don't take it, you will be fired. Because your shareholders want returns on their investment. They want money everywhere else. And so that is the logic of the system. Once the money passes through the veil of blood called theft, what happens to it afterwards doesn't really matter, but it's never going to be any particular good. So empathize with the bankers. I think that's really important. Understand that you would do the same thing in their position. And you would do the same thing if you were in Barack Obama's position. And you would do the same thing if you were in David Cameron's position. And you would do the same thing if you were an Irish banker. And you would do the same thing if you were the head of the Greek system. And you would do the same thing if you were a bondholder of Greek debt. You would do the same thing. This is not to say that it's all moral and fine and good and we should go give bankers a hug. But it is to understand that it is not through personal immorality that the system is dying. It is not through the personal immorality of any particular head of a communist organization that communism fails. It is through the immorality of the system as a whole. If we can all understand that we would do exactly the same thing if we were in the position of those to benefit from state power, we would do that thing. We would do that thing. I mean, if you're a Greek civil service worker and somebody offers you a retirement at the age of 50 for 40 years with free health care and a massive pension and 13 months pay a year, of course you're going to take it. You're going to take it and you're going to spend it. And the next thing you're going to do is you're going to create all of these imaginary moral and legal and ethical obligations on everyone else to sustain you in this unjust booty. The system as a whole is corrupt. The individuals are not responsible for it. It doesn't mean that we don't have any moral choices to make in the system and so on. Empathize with the bankers, and then we won't hate the bankers, we'll hate the system. And that means real change.
Stefan Molyneux from Free Domain Radio. Oh, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, and I guess a shout out to, I don't know if you knew, I'm born in Ireland, Southern Ireland, and spent a good deal of summers there, and hello to my fellow sidewalkers.
Well, we appreciate that, and we look forward to having you back on sometime soon.
Thank you so much for the time. And great questions, I really appreciate that. And freedomainradio.com, for my listeners as well, people who want to listen to you more, where should they go?
They can join us on paradigmshiftorg.blogspot.com, and we post all of our podcasts on there.
Thank you so much. I'll take care.
Thanks, Stefan.
Hello everyone, my name is Aaron Hawkins, I'm also known as Storm Clouds Gathering, and today we're here with Stuart Rhodes, the founder of Oath Keepers. Now, Stuart served in the military as a U.S. Army paratrooper. He's an award-winning scholar who's taught military history at Yale, and he's currently writing a book on the dangers of applying the laws of war on the American people. His website is oathkeepers.org. Now, a lot of people in the audience are probably familiar with Oath Keepers, but for those who aren't, could you take a moment to clarify to everyone what Oath Keepers is, what you stand for, and what you're working to achieve?
Real quick, what we are is an association of both current serving and former military, police, and emergency personnel, such as firefighters. And the main focus of the organization is all of those who swore an oath to support and defend the Constitution, who are at the tip of the spear, and who may be given orders to carry out unlawful orders, unconstitutional orders. Our mission is to teach them about the Constitution they swore an oath to defend, and also to reach out to the veterans as well. So those who are former have a responsibility under their oath and under their obligations as citizens to defend the Constitution.
The Oath Keepers has taken an official stance against the recent NDAA bill. But there's a lot of people out there who seem convinced that the NDAA doesn't apply to American citizens, or it doesn't preclude the right to a trial by jury. Could you take a few moments to clarify this for people?
Well, I mean, the background of this is that back when I was a student at Yale Law School, I wrote a paper on just this topic, on the application of the laws of war to American citizens. And I could see this coming a long time ago, because this is not like out of left field. This is nothing new. So this is the important background. What this bill is saying is that they're affirming the authority they gave, or they claim they gave, back in 2001, right after 9/11, was the authorization for use of military force, which read that the president was given